Businessman leaves safe open to uncover the truth, but the cleaner's reaction touched him. Richard Thompson watched through the mirrored glass of his office as he prepared what he considered the ultimate test of honesty. For weeks, small amounts of money had been disappearing from the office, and he needed to find out who was responsible. That's when he decided to leave the safe deliberately open, with stacks of cash clearly visible, while he hid to observe who would pass by the hallway that Tuesday morning. Dorothy Jenkins pushed the cleaning cart down the hallway of Thompson & Associates Accounting in downtown Chicago, as she had done for 5 years. Her steps were slow, not out of laziness, but from the weariness she carried on her shoulders since her troubles began. As she approached the boss's office, she noticed something unusual. The safe was wide open, and piles of $100 bills were exposed like a tempting invitation. Richard held his breath. This was the moment of truth. But what happened next left him completely stunned. Dorothy stopped in front of the safe, looked around to make sure she was alone, and then did something Richard never expected. She knelt right there in front of the money and began to cry. These weren't silent tears. It was a deep, desperate sob that echoed through the empty hallway. Richard froze behind the glass. This wasn't the reaction of a thief. It was the cry of someone carrying an unbearable weight. Dorothy took her cleaning cloth and with trembling hands carefully wiped around the safe, making sure not to touch a single bill. Between sobs, she murmured words Richard couldn't fully hear. After a few minutes that felt like hours, she stood up, gently closed the safe door, and continued cleaning as if nothing had happened. Richard stepped out of his hiding spot with a heavy heart. He needed to understand what he had just witnessed. "Dorothy," he called as she reached the end of the hallway. She turned, quickly wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her blue uniform. "Yes, Mr. Richard. Do you need something? Could you come here for a moment? I'd like to talk to you." Dorothy's face paled. She nodded and followed him to the office, her hands nervously gripping the mop handle. "Please, have a seat." Richard gestured to a chair. "That's all right, Mr. Richard. I can stand." "Please sit." Dorothy obeyed, keeping her eyes down. "Dorothy, how long have you worked here again?" "5 years, Mr. Richard. I've always been punctual, never missed a day without notice." "I know, that's why I'm confused. May I ask you something directly?" She nodded, bracing herself for the worst. "A few minutes ago, I saw you crying in front of my open safe. Can you explain what happened?" Dorothy closed her eyes. Her worst fear had come true. He had seen everything. "I didn't take anything, Mr. Richard. You can search my bag, my cart, my clothes. I didn't take a single penny." "I know you didn't. My question is, why were you crying?" Tears welled up in Dorothy's eyes again, but this time she didn't try to hide them. Because I haven't been paid in 3 months, Mr. Richard. And when I saw all that money there, I thought of my mother in the hospital, the bills I can't pay, the hunger she must be feeling because I couldn't afford her medicine this morning." Richard felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. "What do you mean you haven't been paid in 3 months? That's impossible. I authorize all payments personally. Mr. Michael told me the company was going through difficulties and that the cleaning staff's salaries had been temporarily suspended." "Michael, my financial manager?" "Yes, sir." Richard fell silent for a moment, processing the information. "Dorothy, why didn't you come to me sooner?" "He said if anyone complained directly to you, they'd be fired on the spot. And I need this job, Mr. Richard. Even without pay, I need to keep my employment status for my mother's health insurance." The pieces were starting to fall into place in Richard's mind. For months, he had been approving payments as usual. If Dorothy wasn't receiving her pay, where was the money going? "Tell me something, Dorothy. Are other employees also not getting paid?" She hesitated. I can't speak for others, Mr. Richard." "Yes, you can. I need to know the truth." "Mrs. Martha from the cafeteria hasn't been paid in 2 months. Mr. Robert from security hasn't been paid in 4 months. Amanda from reception hasn't been paid in 6 weeks. Richard stood abruptly, pacing back and forth across the room. "And all of you stayed quiet? Why?" "Because Mr. Michael said if anyone reported it, he had proof we were stealing company supplies. He claimed he had documents to prove it." "Dear listener, If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. What kind of documents? I don't know, Mr. Richard. All I know is he showed Mr. Roberts some papers with his signature, saying it was a confession to theft. Mr. Roberts swears he never signed anything like that, but the signature looked just like his. Richard felt anger rising in his throat. Michael had forged documents to blackmail the employees. Dorothy, listen carefully. You'll keep working as usual. I won't fire anyone, but I need you to keep our conversation today between us. Can you do that for me? Of course, Mr. Richard. And about your salary, how much do you owe because of these 3 months? Dorothy lowered her head, ashamed. I lost my home last month, Mr. Richard. My mother and I are renting a room in Southside. I owe 3 months' rent there too. My mother's medications cost $400 a week, and I've only been able to buy them every other week. What health issues does your mother have? Diabetes and high blood pressure. She's 78 and can barely walk. She needs prescription medication and a cardiologist visit every month. Richard did the math in his head. If Dorothy made $1,200 a month, she was missing $3,600 over 3 months, plus the overdue rent, plus the medications. Dorothy, I'll make you an offer. I'll give you an advance on your pay today, $300. It's all I have on me right now. I'll sort out the rest tomorrow morning. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears again. Mr. Richard, I can't take charity. It wouldn't be right. It's not charity. It's your right. This money should have been yours 3 months ago. But what if Mr. Michael finds out? Leave Michael to me. You don't need to worry about him. Richard took out his wallet and handed the bills to Dorothy, who accepted them with trembling hands. Thank you so much, Mr. Richard. My mother will be able to get her medicine today. After Dorothy left, Richard immediately called his accountant. Mr. Williams, it's Richard. I need you to email me the detailed records of all employee payments for the last 6 months. Of course, Richard. But wasn't Michael handling that? That's exactly why I'm asking. Send them directly to me. An hour later, Richard reviewed the bank statements with growing outrage. All payments had been authorized and transferred as usual. The problem was, the money never reached the employees. Michael arrived at the office around 2 in the afternoon, as usual, smiling and confident. Good afternoon, Richard. How was your morning? I need to talk to you. Come to my office. Of course. What's going on? As soon as the door closed, Richard got straight to the point. Michael, how long have we known each other? About 15 years, right? Since you started the company. Why? Because I need to ask you a very serious question, and I expect a very honest answer. Michael straightened up, sensing the gravity in Richard's tone. Of course, go ahead. Are the cleaning, security, and cafeteria staff getting paid on time? Michael hesitated for a split second before answering. Of course they are. Why do you ask? Are you sure? Absolutely. All payments are made promptly on the 5th of every month. Richard opened his laptop and turned the screen toward Michael. Then explain this to me. On the screen were bank statements showing all the transfers made over the past few months. I don't understand, Richard. Everything looks fine here. All payments were made. They were made, yes. The question is, where did the money go? Michael's face grew slightly paler. What do you mean? Where did it go? It went to the employees' accounts, obviously. Michael, I spoke with Dorothy this morning. She hasn't received a paycheck in 3 months. That's impossible. There must be some misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. She lost her home, Michael. She's living in a rented room with her sick mother because she can't afford rent. Richard, I don't know what's happening. I'll check immediately to see what might have gone wrong. I've already checked. The money left our account but never reached hers, or Robert's, or Martha's, or Amanda's. Michael fell silent for a few seconds. It must be a bank issue. I'll contact the bank right now. No need. I already did. The bank confirmed all transfers went to the correct accounts. The problem isn't with the bank, Michael. Then I don't know what it could be. Maybe they changed accounts and didn't tell us. Michael, stop lying to me. The tension in the room thickened. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I'm not lying, Richard. I don't know what's going on. Fine, here's what we'll do. I'll call the bank right now in front of you and ask them to confirm the account numbers where the money was sent. Michael swallowed hard. I don't think that's necessary. I trust your word. But I don't trust yours. So let's call. Richard picked up the phone and dialed the bank. Hello, I'd like to speak to my account manager, please. Richard Thompson from Thompson & Associates. Michael stood abruptly. Richard, I need to step out to handle an urgent matter. We can talk about this later. Sit down. But it's urgent. I said sit down. Michael obeyed but was visibly nervous. Hello, manager. I need to verify the account numbers where some transfers were sent over the past few months. Can you help me? Richard jotted down the account numbers as he spoke with the manager. When he hung up, he compared them to the numbers in the company files. Michael, Dorothy's account ends in 4758, right? I don't remember all the employees' account numbers by heart. According to the bank, her paycheck was sent to an account ending in 9432. Can you tell me whose account that is? Michael stayed silent. Michael, I'm giving you one last chance to tell me the truth. Richard, I can explain everything, but it's not what you think. Then explain. I set up a central account to streamline payments. The money goes there first, and then I distribute it to the employees. Why didn't you ever tell me about this account? Because it's a temporary process. It was supposed to simplify the accounting. Then why aren't the employees getting paid? There must have been an issue with the redistribution. I'll fix this right away. Richard stood up and walked to the window, turning his back to Michael. Do you know what makes me angriest about this whole mess, Michael? What? Dorothy told me you threatened the employees, said if anyone complained they'd be fired, and that you had fake documents proving they were stealing. Michael turned pale. That's a lie. I never threatened anyone. A lie? Then explain why Robert believes you have a signed theft confession from him. There must have been a misunderstanding. Richard turned to face Michael. Years of friendship down the drain, Michael. Years. Richard, I can explain everything. Give me a chance. You have until 8 a.m. tomorrow to deposit all the money into the correct employee accounts, every cent with adjustments for the months of delay. Richard, and I want every document you've been using to blackmail my employees on my desk, all of them. There's no blackmail, Richard. You've got it all wrong. 8 a.m., Michael. Don't make me take harsher measures. Michael left the room with his head down, and Richard stood alone, trying to process everything he'd uncovered. 15 years of friendship and trust thrown away. That afternoon, he decided to speak personally with every employee who'd been wronged. The first was Martha from the cafeteria, a 62-year-old woman who'd worked at the company for 8 years. Mrs. Martha, could you come here for a minute? Of course, Mr. Richard. Did I do something wrong? No, the opposite. I want to apologize. Apologize? For what? I found out you haven't been paid for 2 months. Martha's face immediately tightened. Who told you that? That doesn't matter. What matters is I didn't know and I want to fix it. Mr. Richard, Mr. Michael told me if I complained to you, he'd show papers proving I was taking food home from the cafeteria. What papers? He said he had footage of me putting things in my bag. Mrs. Martha, have you ever taken food home from the cafeteria? She lowered her head, ashamed. Just once, Mr. Richard. My grandson was in the hospital, and I didn't have money to buy him food. I took a loaf of bread and some juice, but only once, I swear. And you paid it back? Yes. I had it deducted from my paycheck the next month. Then there was no theft. You bought the food. But Mr. Michael said that didn't matter, that it could still be seen as theft. Richard shook his head, furious. Mrs. Martha, starting tomorrow, you'll get paid as usual, and I'll deposit what you're owed for the past 2 months today. Tears welled in the woman's eyes. Thank you so much, Mr. Richard. She'll be so happy. She? My wife. She's been in the hospital for a month. I couldn't afford private care, so I had to take her to Medicare. But they don't have the medicine she needs. Richard's chest tightened. Another family torn apart by Michael's greed. What's wrong with your wife? Lung cancer, Mr. Richard. She never smoked a day in her life, but she got this awful disease. The medicine cost $2,000 a month. Mrs. Martha, I'll give you an advance now, $500. And tomorrow I'll deposit the rest. Mr. Richard, I don't even have the words to thank you. Next was Robert, the security guard, a 55-year-old man with 4 kids. Mr. Robert, I need to talk to you. Of course, boss. I heard you're having money troubles. Robert tensed up immediately. I'm not complaining about anything, boss. I know the company's going through a rough patch. What rough patch? Mr. Michael explained that the salaries were delayed because of the crisis. Mr. Robert, this company isn't going through any crisis. Someone's lying to you. What do you mean, boss? Michael is diverting your salaries. I authorize the payments every month, but the money never reaches your accounts. Robert fell silent, processing the information. So you're saying that you've been robbed for the past 4 months. But he showed me some papers claiming I'd signed a theft confession. Said if I complained, he'd report me. What theft? He said I was sleeping on duty and that it was job abandonment, which could be interpreted as wage theft. Have you ever slept on duty? Robert hesitated. Just once, boss. It was the day my daughter was born. I spent the whole night at the hospital and came straight to work. Ended up dozing off for a couple of hours in the early morning. And did you let anyone know you were tired? I did, but there was no one to cover for me. Then there was no job abandonment. You were tired for a valid reason and still showed up to work. But the paper he showed had my signature. Forged. Robert was furious. That bastard has been fooling me all this time. Mr. Robert, calm down. I'll fix everything. Starting tomorrow, you'll get paid normally again. Boss, you have no idea what I've been through these 4 months. My wife had to go back to working as a cleaner, even with her back problems. My kids are eating nothing but rice and beans. I had to pull them out of private school. Richard felt another stab to his heart. How many kids do you have? 4, 3 in school and a 2-year-old. The oldest had a scholarship at a good school, but I lost it because I couldn't pay the enrollment fee. Which school? St. Mary's Academy, over in Lincoln Park. I'll call them tomorrow. Let's see if we can sort this out. Boss, you don't have to... Yes, I do. It's the least I can do after letting this happen under my watch. Finally, Richard spoke to Amanda, the receptionist, a young woman of 28, a single mother. Amanda, can you come here? Of course, Mr. Richard. I heard you've been struggling financially. Amanda grew nervous. Mr. Richard, if this is about that day I was late, I can explain. My son had a fever and... It's not about being late. It's about your salary. My salary? Have you been getting paid on time? Amanda hesitated before answering. I have. With a few days' delay, but that's normal. Amanda, tell me the truth. How long has it been since you were paid? She started crying. 6 weeks, Mr. Richard, but Mr. Michael said it was temporary. And how have you been managing? I've been selling things around the house, sold the TV, the microwave, some clothes, and my sister's been helping with food for my son. How old is your son? 5. He's in public school, but he needs supplies, a uniform, things like that. And the father? I haven't heard from him in 3 years. Richard took more money from his wallet. Amanda, this is for whatever your son needs today. Tomorrow I'll deposit everything you're owed. Mr. Richard, thank you so much. My son's been asking for a new notebook for 2 weeks, and I couldn't afford it. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about how Michael had deceived him for so long. More than that, he thought about the suffering his employees had endured while he lived comfortably unaware. The next morning, he arrived at the office at 7. Michael was already there, waiting. Richard, I managed to sort everything out. I deposited the money into the correct accounts. All the employees? All of them. With adjustments for the overdue months. With adjustments. And the documents you were using for blackmail. Michael handed a folder to Richard. Here they all are. Richard opened the folder and found copies of documents with signatures that looked authentic but were clearly forged. Michael, do you know what saddens me the most about this? What? that you had the nerve to forge documents to blackmail hard-working, honest people. Richard, I can explain. I don't want any more explanations. I want your resignation on my desk by noon. Richard, for God's sake. We've been partners for 15 years. That's exactly why I'm giving you the chance to leave with dignity. If you don't resign, I'll have to take other measures. What measures? Measures that won't be good for you. Michael stayed silent for a few minutes. Richard, I didn't want it to come to this, but you forced my hand. How did I force you? You don't know everything that's been happening in this company. Then tell me. 2 years ago, I found out you were diverting company money into a personal account. Richard was shocked. That's a lie. I have proof, documents, bank statements, everything. What proof? Michael took a folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. Here are the transfers you made to an account in the Cayman Islands. Richard opened the folder and examined the documents. They were bank statements showing million-dollar transfers to an offshore account. Michael, this is all fake. Oh? Then explain your signature here. Richard looked closer at the documents. The signatures appeared genuine. You forged my signature too. I didn't forge anything. I just found out what you were doing and decided to protect myself. Protect yourself how? By taking my share before the company went under. Richard finally understood Michael's plan. He had created fake documents to justify stealing the employees' salaries. Michael, do you really think I'd believe I transferred money to an offshore account? It doesn't matter if you believe it, it matters if others do. What others? The Internal Revenue Service, for example, or the District Attorney's Office. Richard realized he was being blackmailed. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a deal. You forget what you found out about the salaries, and I'll forget what I found out about your transfers. And if I refuse, then you'll have to explain to a lot of important people why you were sending money overseas without reporting it. Richard stayed silent, weighing his options. Either he accepted the blackmail and let Michael keep stealing from the employees, or he faced an investigation based on fake documents. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow to decide. Michael left the room, leaving the forged documents on the table. Richard spent the rest of the day going through the papers. The signatures were flawless. The statements looked real. Michael had done a professional job forging them. That afternoon, he decided to consult a financial crimes lawyer. Mr. Miller, I need your help urgently. Of course, Richard. What happened? Richard explained the whole situation to the lawyer, showing the forged documents. Richard, this is very serious. If someone reports you based on these documents, it'll cause major trouble. But they're fake. I know they're fake. You know they're fake. But proving it will be complicated. Why? Because the signatures are perfect, and the bank statements look authentic. They'll need handwriting analysis, document examination, bank investigations. It could take months. And in the meantime? In the meantime, your name will be tarnished, the company will be under investigation, and your assets could be frozen. Richard sat heavily in the chair. So there's no way out for me. There is, but it'll be risky. What is it? We'll set a trap for Michael, make him confess to the scheme and record everything. How? You'll pretend to accept his deal, but during the conversation you'll ask questions that lead him to admit the crimes, and I'll be recording it all. Is that legal? In the United States, you can record a conversation if you're part of it. And considering he's blackmailing you, we have legal justification. Richard thought about the proposal. What if it goes wrong? If it goes wrong, at least we'll have tried. But if you do nothing, he'll keep stealing from your employees and could still report you whenever he wants. Then let's do it. The next day, Richard arrived at the office with a tiny recorder taped to his chest under his shirt. Michael was waiting for him in the room, confident. So, Richard, made up your mind? I have. I accept the deal. Good. I knew you were smart. But I need to understand better how this will work. What do you mean? I want to know exactly how you discovered these transfers and how you guarantee you won't use this against me in the future. Richard, you don't need to worry about that. I do. If we're going to be partners in this scheme, I need to know every detail. Michael hesitated for a moment. Fine, I'll tell you. Go ahead. 2 years ago, when you went on vacation, I was in charge of the company. That's when I found out you'd made some suspicious transfers. What transfers? You don't remember? There were 3 transfers of $100,000 each. Richard knew he'd never made those transfers, but pretended to recall. Oh, right. But how did you find out? I was checking the bank statements and saw the transfers. When you came back, I asked about them, but you said they were private. And then? Then I did my own investigation, found out the money went to an offshore account. And how did you get access to that information? I have my contacts at the bank. Richard realized Michael was contradicting himself. If he'd discovered real transfers, he would have confronted Richard back then. Michael, clear something up for me. If you found this out 2 years ago, why are you only using it against me now? Because only now did you find out what I was doing with the payroll. Oh, so you admit you were embezzling the salaries. Michael realized his mistake too late. It's not like that. Then what's it like? Richard, let's not complicate things. The important thing is we've reached an agreement. But I want to understand. Exactly how were you diverting the salaries? Richard? Come on, Michael, we're partners now, remember? Michael sighed. I set up a central account. The payroll money went through that account before reaching the employees. And you kept a portion. I kept what I needed to cover the losses from your transfers. What losses? Well, if you were taking money from the company, someone had to replace it, right? Richard had gotten the confession he needed. Michael had admitted to embezzling the salaries and fabricating the false evidence of offshore transfers. I see. And how much did you keep each month? About 20,000–30,000, it varied. And how long have you been doing this? About 8 months. Richard did the math. 8 months, 30,000 a month. Michael had stolen nearly $250,000. Michael, what if the tables turn? What if someone finds out what you're doing? Impossible. Only you and I know about this. But what if evidence surfaces? What evidence? I destroyed all the incriminating documents. What documents? The records of the transfers to the central account, the fake contracts I used to justify the expenses, everything. Richard had gotten more than he expected. Michael had confessed not only to the embezzlement of salaries, but also to the destruction of evidence. All right, Michael, I think we can work together. That's good. I knew you were smart. They shook hands, sealing the false agreement. As soon as Michael left the room, Richard called his lawyer. Mr. Miller, I got everything. He confessed to the salary embezzlement, the document forgery, and even admitted to destroying evidence. Perfect. I'll prepare all the paperwork. Tomorrow we can file the complaint. What about the fake documents he has against me? With the recorded confession, we'll be able to prove they're forgeries. He even admitted to creating false evidence. Richard hung up the phone, relieved. Finally, there was light at the end of the tunnel. But his happiness didn't last long. When he got home that night, he found his wife Jennifer crying in the living room. Jennifer? What happened? Richard, you need to tell me the truth about something. What is it? I got a call this afternoon. Someone said you're being investigated for tax evasion and money laundering. Richard felt his world crumbling. Who called? I don't know. It was a man's voice. He said he was from the district attorney's office and that they had evidence against you. Jennifer, that's a lie. It's a setup by Michael. What setup? Richard told his wife the whole situation. The discovery of the salary embezzlement, Michael's blackmail, the recording of the confession. But Richard, why would someone call here? Because Michael found out I recorded the conversation. He must have seen the recorder or suspected something. What now? Now he's trying to destabilize me before I report him. Richard immediately called his lawyer. Mr. Miller, we have a problem. Michael found out what we did. How do you know? Because someone called my house pretending to be from the district attorney's office. Richard, this changes everything. We need to speed things up. I'll file the complaint first thing tomorrow morning. Will there be enough time? There has to be. If he files a complaint against you first, it'll be harder to prove it's all fake. Richard spent another sleepless night, imagining all the possibilities. What if Michael actually managed to prove the false accusations? What if the justice system believed him? The next morning he arrived at the office determined to confront Michael once again. But when he got there, he found the entire company in chaos. "Mr. Richard," Amanda came running up to him. "The company is being investigated." "What do you mean?" "Some men showed up early with a search warrant. They took a bunch of documents and computers." Richard felt his legs go weak. Michael had beaten him to it. "Where are these men?" "They left about 20 minutes ago, but they left a paper for you." Amanda handed Richard a summons to appear at the police station that same day. Richard immediately called his lawyer. "Mr. Miller, they beat us to it. The company was investigated this morning." "Richard, come to my office now. We need to prepare for the hearing." "What hearing?" "The police station will want to hear from you today. We have to prepare your defense." Richard spent the next few hours at the lawyer's office preparing for the interrogation. They gathered all the evidence they had. The recording of Michael's confession, the real bank statements, the employees' testimonies. That afternoon, Richard arrived at the police station accompanied by his lawyer. "Mr. Richard Thompson?" asked the detective. "Yes, that's me." "Have a seat, please. I'm here to hear your side of the allegations made against you." "What allegations?" "You're being accused of tax evasion, money laundering, and currency smuggling." Richard swallowed hard. "Detective, these accusations are all false. I have evidence to prove it." "You may present your evidence." The lawyer handed over all the documentation they had prepared to the detective. "Detective, my client is the victim of a setup by a dishonest employee. Here's the recording of the employee's confession, admitting he forged documents and embezzled money from the company." The detective reviewed the documents and listened to the recording. "Interesting. But can you explain these transfers here?" The detective showed the same falsified documents Michael had presented to Richard. "Detective, these documents are forged. The signatures are imitations of my real signature. Can you prove that?" "We can request a handwriting analysis. We can also check with the banks. I'm certain there's no record of these transfers in the banking systems." "All right, I'll request the necessary analyses. But in the meantime, you'll have to surrender your passport and remain available to the court." Richard handed over his passport, knowing his life had completely changed in that moment. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the following days, news of the investigation spread through the city. Richard had to face not only legal troubles, but also public humiliation. Some clients cancelled contracts, suppliers demanded upfront payments, and employees grew uncertain about the company's future. But what hurt Richard the most was Dorothy's reaction. "Mr. Richard," she approached him late on a Friday afternoon, "I need to talk to you." "Of course, Dorothy. What is it?" "People are saying you're being investigated for stealing money from the company." "Dorothy, that's not true. It's all a setup by Michael." "But how can you prove it?" Richard realized even Dorothy, whom he had helped, doubted his innocence. "Dorothy, you know my character. Do you really believe I'd steal from the employees?" "I don't know, Mr. Richard. Mr. Michael always spoke highly of you. If he's accusing you." "Michael was the one stealing from you. Have you forgotten he was the one who stopped your pay for months?" "But he explained it was you who ordered the pay cuts." Richard was stunned. "He said what?" "That you had suspended payments because of personal financial troubles." Richard realized Michael had completely twisted the situation. Now, the employees believed he was the villain. "Dorothy, do you have the recording of our first conversation? When I found you crying in front of the safe?" "No, sir." "Then it's my word against his." "Yeah, Mr. Richard." Richard saw in Dorothy's eyes that she no longer believed him. And if she, who had directly benefited from his help, doubted him, imagine the other employees. That night, Richard had a difficult conversation with his wife. "Jennifer, I think it's best if you take the kids and stay at your sister's for a few days." "Why?" "Because this might get worse. I don't want you to face any embarrassment." "Richard, you didn't do anything. Why are you running?" "I'm not running. I'm protecting you." "From what?" "From the media, the neighbors, the gossip. You've seen how people are looking at us. Jennifer knew Richard was right. That morning, when she went to the supermarket, some people had given her strange looks and whispered as she passed. All right, but only for a few days. Once this is resolved, I'll come back. Thank you for understanding. Richard, I trust you. I know you didn't do anything wrong. How can you be so sure? Because I've known you for 20 years. You'd never hurt anyone, let alone steal. Richard hugged his wife, grateful that at least one person still believed in him. The following week, the first results of the investigation came in. The handwriting analysis confirmed that the signatures on the documents were forged. Richard, the lawyer called excitedly, we have good news. The analysis proved you didn't sign those documents. And now? Now we'll prove it was Michael who falsified everything. How? I'll request a broader analysis, compare his handwriting to the forgeries, and I'll also ask to trace where those documents came from. Meanwhile, Richard had to endure the suspicions and distrustful glances. Some longtime clients avoided greeting him on the street, while others asked indirect questions about the company's situation. But the worst part was seeing the employees suffering. With the company under investigation, many suppliers stopped deliveries, and some clients cancelled contracts. That meant less work, and consequently, less money to pay salaries. Richard had to make a tough decision, use his personal savings to keep the employees. Mrs. Martha, he called the cafeteria worker, I want you to know that no matter what's happening, your salaries will continue to be paid on time. Mr. Richard, you don't have to. We know the company is going through hard times. It's not the company's hardship, it's mine, and I won't let you pay for it. Martha was moved. Mr. Richard, can I say something? Of course. At first, when I heard about the investigation, I thought you might have really done something wrong. But seeing how hard you're fighting to protect us, I'm sure you're innocent. Why are you so sure? Because a guilty man would run. He wouldn't stay here spending his own money to pay employees. Richard felt enormous relief. At least Martha believed in him again. Mrs. Martha, can I ask you a favor? Of course. Could you talk to the other employees? Explain that I haven't abandoned you and that I'll fight to the end to prove my innocence. Don't worry, Mr. Richard. I'll talk to everyone. In the following weeks, Richard saw the employees gradually trusting him again. Dorothy was one of the last to be convinced, but when she was, she became one of Richard's strongest defenders. Mr. Richard, she approached him one Thursday afternoon. I want to apologize. Why? For doubting you. I should have trusted you from the start. Dorothy, it's natural you were confused. Michael is very convincing. But you helped me when I needed it most. I should have remembered that. And you did. That's why you're here now. Mr. Richard, can I tell you something? Of course. Yesterday, I talked to other cleaners from nearby buildings. You know what I found out? What? That Mr. Michael had been offering accounting services to other businesses, using our company's name as a reference. Richard was intrigued. What do you mean? He said he was a partner at Thompson & Associates, and that he could offer cheaper services than the competition. And did he get clients? He got at least 3 small businesses here in the area. Richard realized he had found another piece of the puzzle. Michael wasn't just embezzling from the company, he was also using its name to secure private clients. Dorothy, can you give me the names of those businesses? I can. But why is it important? Because it could be more proof that Michael was acting dishonestly. Richard passed this information to the lawyer, who immediately began investigating Michael's side activities. Richard, the lawyer called a few days later, we found something interesting. Michael really was providing private services using your company's name. And is that a crime? Depending on how it was done, it could be trademark misuse, unfair competition, or even fraud. What do you mean? If he was charging for services and not passing any of it to the company, that's fraud. If he was using your signature on contracts, that's forgery. Richard felt a glimmer of hope. Finally, there was concrete evidence against Michael. And now we'll present this evidence to the detective. With this, plus the recorded confession and the handwriting analysis, we have a solid case. By the end of that week, Richard was called back to the police station. But this time the situation was different. "Mr. Richard," the detective said, "after reviewing all the evidence, we've concluded that you were the victim of an elaborate scheme." Richard felt indescribable relief. "Detective, does that mean—" "It means we're closing the investigation against you and opening a new one against Mr. Michael Peterson." "For what crimes?" "Fraud, forgery, embezzlement, misuse of trademarks, and unfair competition. We may uncover more as the investigation progresses." Richard left the station with a sense of freedom he hadn't felt in months. The first thing he did was call his wife. "Jennifer, it's me. It's all settled." "What do you mean, settled?" "The investigation proved I'm innocent. Michael is the one under investigation now." "Richard, what a relief. I'm coming home right now. Bring the kids. I want to hug everyone." The second thing Richard did was gather all the employees to share the news. "Everyone," he said, visibly emotional. "I want you to know the investigation proved my innocence. Michael was the real criminal." The employees applauded, and some even cried. "Mr. Richard," Dorothy said, "we always knew you were innocent." "Not everyone did, Dorothy, and that's okay. What matters is the truth is out now." "What's going to happen to Mr. Michael?" Robert asked. "He'll face justice for his crimes, and he'll have to return all the money he stole." "What about the company?" Amanda asked. "The company will keep running as usual. In fact, it'll run better than before because now we know everyone is being paid fairly." In the following months, Richard worked to rebuild the company's reputation. Some clients returned, others were gradually won back. The story of how he'd protected his employees during the crisis spread, and many began to see him as a model of integrity. Michael was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison for his crimes. During the trial, he tried to justify his actions by saying Richard earned much more than the employees, and that he was just redistributing wealth. Richard watched the trial and felt more pity than anger toward Michael. 15 years of friendship thrown away by greed. After the trial, Dorothy approached him. "Mr. Richard, can I say something?" "Of course, Dorothy." "Have you thought about how all this started?" "What do you mean?" "It all began because you left the safe open to test people's honesty." Richard smiled. "That's true. And in the end, the most dishonest person was the one you trusted the most." "Yeah. But do you know the most important part of this whole story?" "What?" "It was when you saw me crying in front of the money and decided to help me instead of firing me." "Why?" "Because that showed your true character. Any other boss would have assumed I was there to steal. But you saw I was hurting and wanted to help." Richard was moved by Dorothy's words. "Dorothy, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "That day changed my life too." "How?" "Because it made me realize I'd been a distant boss. I wasn't aware of my employees' struggles. I didn't know you were suffering." "And now?" "Now I'll make it a point to get to know each of you, learn your stories, your needs, your dreams." "Mr. Richard, you already do that." "I do?" "Of course. You paid for Mr. Robert's daughter's school, helped with Mrs. Martha's wife's treatment, gave me money for my mother." "That's the least I can do." "It's not the least, Mr. Richard. It's the most. Most bosses only care about profits." Richard reflected on Dorothy's words. Maybe she was right. Maybe all that hardship had taught him something about leadership and humanity. A few months later, Richard decided to implement some changes in the company. He created an employee assistance program with medical, dental, and psychological support. He set up monthly meetings where each employee could speak directly with him about anything. "Mr. Richard," Dorothy approached him during one of those meetings. "Can I make a suggestion?" "Of course." "Why don't you share your story with other businesses?" "How do you mean?" "Your story. How you discovered you were being stolen from by your own partner, and how it made you rethink your relationship with employees." "You think anyone would be interested?" "I'm sure of it. How many bosses out there might be going through the same thing without realizing it?" Richard liked the idea. He began giving talks to other business owners, sharing his experience and teaching them how to spot signs of internal dishonesty. "The first thing I learned," he always said in his talks, "is that the honesty test shouldn't be for employees. It should be for managers and partners." "Why?" someone in the audience would inevitably ask. Because regular employees rarely have access to company money, but managers and partners do. And when someone has easy access to money, the temptation is much greater. And how do you spot a dishonest manager? Watch for the signs. If employees start complaining about late paychecks, but bank statements show payments were made, something's wrong. If a manager always has excuses, avoids giving detailed explanations, or tries to isolate you from employees, be suspicious. And what was the most important lesson you learned? That a company's true wealth isn't in the money it makes, but in the trust among the people who work there. A year after the safe incident, Richard organized a gathering to celebrate overcoming the crisis. All employees were there, even those recently hired. "Everyone," Richard said, raising a toast. "I want to thank you all for standing by me during the toughest times." "Mr. Richard," Dorothy interrupted, "you don't need to thank us. We're the ones who should thank you for having a boss who cares about us." "Dorothy's right," said Robert. "I have friends at other companies, and I've never seen a boss pay for an employee's kid's private school. Or visit an employee in the hospital," added Martha. "Or hold meetings every week just to ask if we're okay," said Amanda. Richard was moved by their words. "Do you know why I do all this?" "Why?" they asked in unison. "Because I've learned that a company is like a family. And in a family, when one member suffers, everyone suffers. When one is happy, everyone is happy." "Mr. Richard," Dorothy said, "can I say something?" "Of course. Remember that day you found me crying in front of the safe? How could I forget? That day, I wasn't just crying because of the lack of money. No, I was crying because I felt invisible, like I didn't matter to anyone. And now I know I matter, that my family matters, that my problems matter, and that's priceless." Richard realized he had learned the most valuable lesson of his life, that a company's success isn't measured just by profit, but by the happiness of the people who are part of it. 2 years later, Thompson & Associates Accounting had become the most respected accounting firm in the region, not because it was the biggest or the wealthiest, but because it was known for how it treated its employees. Richard never had to conduct honesty tests again, not because there were no more risks, but because he had created an environment of mutual trust where honesty came naturally. And whenever someone asked what the secret to the company's success was, Richard would tell the story of the open safe and the cleaner who cried instead of stealing. "The secret," he always concluded, "isn't in the money we keep, but in the love we share." End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of Richard and Dorothy's story? Do you believe a company's true wealth lies in the people who work there? Share your honest thoughts in the comments. Do you think Richard made the right decisions in protecting his employees? I'd love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to like the video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.